How to research a distinctive brand name. Now, a distinctive name that's ownable and legally available in all the markets in which you aim to trade needs to be effective both from a brand promotion, brand creation perspective, and from a brand protection, trademarkable one too. In practice, that means learning more about different types of name so you can select suitable ones. In this video, I emphasize that you should avoid falling in love with a name before it's been cleared for use. There are preliminary due diligence checks to do yourself, and the ideal is to create a shortlist of 3 to 6 names for legal review and checking internationally. Process and approach to naming is really important because the right approach is impacted by your business plans. The due diligence you yourself do is essential to getting a bulletproof brand because legal checks focus on the trademark registers. Lawyers assume that names you add to your shortlist are otherwise available for you to use and adopt unless you indicate otherwise. So do Google checks on names to identify any obvious problems and let your lawyers know if you're unsure about something you do find when you provide your shortlist of names. As you do your due diligence to eliminate and whittle down the names, keep notes against each name so you have a record of the issues you encounter with particular names. Being able to go back to review the problems or queries that come up in relation to names that are still under consideration at the end of the process saves you a lot of time. Keeping track of your research helps avoid going over the same name because you forgot you already researched it, etc. There's a checklist that you can download giving pointers to look out for when brainstorming names. Find a link to it in the description. Keep track of your findings in a spreadsheet, as I've mentioned, making a note of what you discover about each name that you're considering. A good process when selecting and shortlisting names is the way to avoid going round in circles and getting thoroughly frustrated with the whole exercise or losing the opportunity to secure the .com of a name even though it was available when you first researched the name. You see, to check whether the .com is available, it's best to search in your browser rather than searching domain sites, as there is anecdotal evidence that names that are available to register turn out to be taken when people return to buy them later. On the other hand, you want to avoid registering lots and lots of .com domains before the name has been cleared for use as a trademark. Once the trademark clearance searches establish that a given name is available, that's the time to buy the domain name and register your desired social media handles at the same time. I'd recommend filing a trademark application too, as that protects the name internationally for 6 months before you need to decide whether to register in other markets. The risk, if you don't secure the trademark, is that someone else applies to register a similar name, making it necessary for you to choose a different name in another jurisdiction, perhaps. The picture can change rapidly between searching the registers and filing an application. So to avoid delay once a name has been cleared for use, I recommend filing the application to trademark it straight away. When selecting a name, the order in which you do research, buy domains, register a trademark, and create visual designs makes the difference between having a well-considered brand identity that meets your needs and wasting a lot of time, money, and resources while still not ending up with a name that's legally available to use. It's essential to choose legally effective names. The right to use a name comes from trademarks rather than from domain or company registration. Your own due diligence checks establish whether a name is being used on Google, and if so, for what type of business activity. If its .com is in use, find out what business it's used for. Also, if third parties have registered a similar company name, then that's interesting information, but existing company or domain registrations may not matter. It depends what use is being made of the registrations. If your desired name is being used, bear in mind that people don't always register a trademark when they're using a name. So it's worth doing a quick same name search on the UK or other trademark registers to see if they've registered the name or not. If not, you may put forward the name if it's one you're still interested in, and your lawyers will advise on the risks. It may not necessarily be a showstopper. That's why I recommend keeping track of your findings and letting your lawyers know what you discover so they can advise whether the name is worth doing legal checks on and what the risks would be of adopting it. Shortlisting names. Now, later in this video, I list 6 different types of names to inspire your brainstorming. Do subscribe to the channel so you're notified when I release further videos. It helps more than you know. Now, choose a name that's easy to pronounce and spell and doesn't limit or restrict the possible expansion of your business. For example, a name like Soup Kitchen would be limiting if in future you decide to introduce salads too. So think carefully about the descriptive element that you incorporate into your names as you shortlist them. Think about what the territorial scope of your business's activities will be. Which countries are key for your business? If your business will operate in a few different markets and intends to sell a variety of goods and services, the name needs to be very distinctive, such as Zumba or an invented name. A less distinctive name will be difficult to do thorough searches on and could also lead to more expensive trademarking journey later on. So the type of name you choose determines whether the brand is a suitable vehicle for monetization internationally. Think about the parameters of your name choice and your objectives. What must exist for you to know you have the right name? What are you trying to achieve with the name? How will you know that a potential name is worth adding to your shortlist? What ideas do you want the name to convey? Is there a type of name that you particularly want? See later where I'll highlight the main types of name option. Should the name make people think the product is premium? Are you trying to convey a more abstract concept perhaps? What underlying idea or emotion are you trying to convey through the name? Do you want your company to communicate a sense of fun and innovation, or do you want to create a more traditional impression? Do you want the name to be friendly and approachable? Will you have online products or a podcast using the name? This impacts the trademark classes and the countries in which to secure rights to the name. The name is as much for the benefit of consumers as it is for your benefit. It enables buyers to make buying decisions and to choose products and services in the marketplace. If you bear this in mind, you're less likely to believe that you can use a name that is like that of an existing brand by simply adding a descriptor to the name or otherwise making small adjustments to it. Often when I do due diligence on a name and it transpires that the client can't use their desired name and needs to find an alternative one, they often ask why they can't use the name by adding a descriptor like property or program. They wonder why it's not possible for them to coexist in this way. But if you think like a consumer, you're less likely to believe that a descriptor will distance a name from an existing brand that's in use in your sector. Ask yourself, would a consumer be confused? Here are the 6 different kinds of name. There's firstly generic and descriptive names like British Telecom, Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank, International Business Machines, Business Network International, Club Card. Secondly, there's acronyms like HSBC, BT, GE, BNI. Often these are initials of well-known brands that started out with descriptive names. Then there's thirdly suggestive names like Oatly, Hotel Chocolat, EasyJet, Burger King, Meow Mix. There's then dictionary words like Apple, Shell, Virgin, Jaguar, which alludes to elegance and speed, or Greyhound, which alludes to sleekness and speed, etc. Then fifthly, there's proper names like Disney, Mars, Schweppes, Ryanair, McDonald's. And then finally, there's made-up names like Google, Microsoft, Tesla. Names in the 4th, 5th and 6th category are more distinctive so that fewer trademark problems arise in relation to them, provided they're available, that is, and not already being used by competitors in the countries in which you want to trade. Made-up or invented names give the owner a wide scope of protection. Google is highly distinctive. It's adaptable and flexible enough to grow to cover future business concerns. Such a legally strong name is highly distinctive. The more inventive, novel, or unique the name, the stronger the protection it enjoys. For example, nobody else may buy a domain name incorporating the name Google. They'd be infringing on Google's rights. That's not just because Google is extremely well known, so that it's not possible to call your business Google, even if you operate in a totally different area, such as construction. It's primarily because Google is a made-up name. When you first launch a new business using a made-up name, if anyone registers your name in a domain, you would be able to initiate a domain dispute to recover the domain on the grounds that it's been registered in bad faith. So made-up names are very good from a brand protection perspective. They're the strongest name legally, albeit they suffer from the drawback that you need to establish a meaning in the name for consumers. The key to a name's effectiveness legally is the ease with which it's possible to stop competitors using a similar name. The more distinctive a name, the more the business stands out in the market and benefits from its marketing, because it eliminates the risk of customers mistakenly buying products and services from a competitor brand using a less unusual name. At the other end of the spectrum, imagine if instead of Apple, the business had called itself Computers, or if Google had called itself Search Engine, or Microsoft had called itself Software for Microcomputers. Such descriptive names may have served the businesses well enough in the very, very short term. However, businesses with such generic names would get lost in a sea of similarly generic named businesses. They would need to rebrand because they'd realize that their descriptive names don't enable them to stand out in the market. Branding is about helping a business to be uniquely identifiable and to stand out. Brands that start out with descriptive names, there are some very well-known brands that did use purely descriptive names initially, find out that they need a unique name by which to be recognized, and then they rebrand to get an ownable name so they can trademark it. For example, Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank had to become HSBC. British Telecom had to become BT. Business Network International had to become BNI. While it may seem a convenient solution, to use an acronym or initials, it's not a good approach to naming because it's not always possible to use the acronym, nor is it a good idea to start out with a name that you know you'll need to rebrand later. Far better to avoid such problems by choosing an ownable name from the outset. In part 2 of this video, I'll explain more about these types of name so you'll be aware of the pros and cons of them before you finalize your choice.